I, 29 male, was recently contacted by my parents who have not been in touch with me for the past 5 years, and they want me to help them out. Or to be more precise, they want me to help my brother out. My brother Craig, 31 male, has always been the golden child, so to speak, and my parents never even bothered to hide it because he happened to be better than me in every aspect back then, especially academically, something that my parents allowed me to forget because they kept reminding me that he was doing so much better than me at school and that I needed to buckle up if I wanted to be in the same league as my brother. He got into a great college, and then 5 years ago, he became the youngest vice president in the history of his company. He had been working there ever since he graduated and had been earning well enough for himself right from the beginning. But then, when he made history by becoming the youngest vice president at his company, his fancy corporate job became the standard to beat for me, and my parents could not stop rubbing it in my face. Honestly, though, I had no interest in being a 9-to-5 employee because I'm sure that life has its own perks, but I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And that has been my goal ever since I had even learned the meaning of the word. 5 years ago, after having worked at several places and gaining some knowledge in the industry that I wanted to work in, I decided that I was finally going to start my own business. Modern and edgy car accessories that I would design myself. I had spent enough time on research and development and had a proper business model to go ahead with, so I thought I would speak to my parents about it first because regardless of how they always acted with my brother, I had believed that they would want the best for me as well because, well, they were my parents after all. So I decided to tell them about it after they had thrown my brother a party to celebrate his new job. 2 days after that party, I approached them in person and told them about my plan. I expected them to have some sort of feedback, but instead, they just started laughing and said that I was trying to prank them because it was embarrassing that after educating myself for so many years, this was my big idea for my future business. I told him I was serious about it, but they told me that they would advise me not to quit my job because they would be embarrassed to introduce their son as a failure since they knew that my business was doomed right from the beginning as I was not capable enough. And in comparison to my brother, they did not want me to fail so badly, so I had better just stick to the job that I already had. I was really offended. I decided to argue with them and told them that I was going to go ahead with the business with or without their support. And they said that I was free to do whatever I wanted, but I was not free of the consequences. They told me that if I went ahead with the business idea that I had, they would be forced to cut me out of their lives because I would be an embarrassment to them, and they already knew it. They also told me that they were sick of having to introduce their sons, one being the vice president at a prestigious company, and the other still trying to figure his life out at the age of 25. So they had been thinking about having this discussion with me for quite some time anyway, and they finally told me that I could either continue working my way up at the job that I already had and not be an embarrassment to them, or I could go ahead and do whatever I wanted and make a fool out of myself, but then I would lose them. And I think it's very obvious what I did. I chose to cut them out of my life. I never spoke to them again after that. And I have also not been in touch since then because he obviously took our parents' side over mine, which I'm fine with. He was too arrogant anyway, so I did not want anything to do with him right from the beginning. Anyway, I had been working with cars for a really long time, and that is where I got my business idea from. So I had faith in it. I knew that this was something that people had wanted, so I decided to go in blindly and just prove my parents wrong. I quit my job and started working towards my goal. Now, I know that was a risky move and I should not say it with such pride. I genuinely would not recommend it to anybody, but it actually worked out for me because within a few months, I had some investors on board and I was able to start my own business. It was rough at first. I was basically living hand to mouth and relied only on word of mouth marketing and getting to know about my business, and I got more and more customers. Then, after about a year and a half, things started picking up pace, and there was no looking back after that. And right now, I'm pretty comfortable. I have my own apartment. It's pretty nice. I live in a great neighborhood. I have a nice car, and I honestly have everything that I had dreamt of in the beginning. I wouldn't say that I'm a millionaire, but I'm doing well enough for myself, and I definitely would not say that I have been a failure like my parents had expected me to be. So I would say that I have managed to prove them wrong, and I'm really happy about it. I'm so happy about it that I don't even feel the need to have their face in it because it's not even worth it. Anyway, for the past 5 years, I have not been in touch with them. I even got married to my girlfriend of 8 years, and we have been married for 2 years. And last month, we found out that she was pregnant as well. I've had so many milestones, but I have never tried to contact my parents. They know where to find me. They can literally contact any relative and ask them where I live so they can come visit me. Anyway, I know that they have known all about my life because I have kept in touch with the rest of our family. And they tell me that my parents ask about me pretty often, but never try to get in touch with me. I guess that's their way of dealing with things. But anyway, last week, they finally reached out to me and asked me if I would be willing to meet them. I discussed it with my wife, and she told me that she wanted me to go ahead and see what this was about. They hadn't mentioned anything in the message that they had sent me, so I didn't know what to expect. But I still went ahead and visited them at their house, and once I was there, they welcomed me pretty warmly, but I could sense there was something going on. Even when I used to live with them, they had never been so nice to me. So even while they were making small talk with me, I knew that they were building up to something. And finally, they addressed the elephant in the room. They told me that they had heard how my business was doing and had invited me to congratulate me on it. They did not apologize or anything, but said that they were glad that I had been able to prove them wrong, and their initial skepticism was now completely gone. So that was nice. I did not know what to say, so I just smiled. But then they went on to tell me that Craig had actually been pretty unlucky in the past couple of months. Apparently, his company had not been doing too well, and there had been mass layoffs, and even the upper management had been fired, and that included him. So for the past 4 months, he had just been sitting at home with nothing to do. My parents told me that he'd been trying to look for another job, but after having worked in the same company for so long, he did not know what to do and was pretty depressed about the way things turned out for him. I thought it was really confusing that they were talking about him because there was not much I could do. So I just let them go on because I just wanted to see where they were taking this conversation. After some time, they finally got to the point and asked me if I would be willing to hire my brother because right now he was too depressed to apply to any jobs on his own. And all the offers that he was getting were below his pay grade. So he did need something, and my parents wanted to contact me and asked me if I would be willing to give him a position in my company, something that paid well, and he could also bring his own expertise to the table. And when they asked me that question, I did not know what to say, so I told him that I needed some time to think about it and I would let them know my answer later on. I did not say yes on purpose because I did not know how to respond to that. I should have known that they were not contacting me without any reason, since they had the opportunity to do so before, but hadn't ever done it. They seemed pretty pleased with themselves. I think they expected me to say yes. But after having gone back home, I thought about it for a while, and after discussing it with my wife, I decided to decline. She works in a bank and doesn't have much to do with my company, but she told me that this was the professional arena, and here, whatever I said is what goes, so she did not want to meddle here. If I believed that I would not be able to work well with my brother, then that was what should be done. And either way, she did not think that my parents had been genuine in that attempt to reconcile with me, so I had no reason to do what they asked me. And anyway, I hadn't even agreed to help out, so I did not owe them to give him a job. I didn't plan on letting them know about this because I knew that if I said no, they would take that opportunity and try to make me look like the bad guy. And I tried to avoid any confrontation, but then They started texting me every day to ask me what my answer was, and I even ignored that. But then they finally called me 2 days back and told me that I had to give them an answer. So I told them that I had thought about it, and after a lot of deliberation, I had concluded I could not work well with Craig, and I did not want him working with me. We had never had a good relationship, so I didn't think that I owed it to him or even them to hire him, and they completely flipped out on me when I said that. They started screaming at me about everything that they had done for me, like raising me and paying for everything that I wanted when I was a child. And now, when they expected me to return the favor to them, I was turning my back on them and pretending like I did not owe them anything. I thought that it was a really unfair thing to say because they did all of that for me back because I literally depended on them. And I think it would be pretty illegal to just not do that for me. Besides, that was not even the point. So I tried to tell them that I just wouldn't be able to work well with Craig. And that was the only reason I did not want him in my company. So I did not think that they needed to scream at me and act like that just because of this. Also, we have not been in touch for the past 5 years. After they had told me that they did not have any faith in me and they did not even invest in my business, so they had no right to expect that I would let them push me around. They continued to scream at me and said that they had only contacted me because they felt like 5 years had passed and I would have finally let it go, now that I was finally doing well. But instead, I was being petty and holding on to past grudges and refusing to help out my own family. They reminded me that Craig was my brother, and now that he was in trouble, I needed to be there for him, and even said that he would have run the same for me if I had been in his place. They told me that they would have supported me if my business had not worked out for me, and so I owed it to them to do the same for them. It got pretty confusing, and the argument got really heated, so after a while I told them that I really did not want to speak to them anymore. I hung up and blocked their numbers. Since then, I've been really confused about my feelings because of the things that my parents said about how they would have helped me out if I had been in Craig's place. I have spoken to my wife about it, and she says that they only said these things because I was not actually in his place, and they are trying to manipulate me, so I don't need to fall for any of that because they haven't even apologized to me yet. And somehow, they still expect me to help him out. My brother had never been kind to me when we were kids, and everybody picked on me constantly. And I know she's right, but then I have this nagging feeling of guilt, and I don't know. I just feel really weird about everything. AITA for refusing to hire my brother after he lost his corporate job. Update 1. Thank you so much for responding to my post. It has been a while since I spoke to my parents last, and I know that what I did was not such a big deal, honestly. It's not like my brother will never get a job again. It's just I don't personally want to work with him. I had mentioned that I had spoken about it with my wife, and the two of us have decided to stick to our decision, but that's not sitting well with my parents. They have been going around making it sound like I'm jealous of my brother and had always been, which is why I was relishing the opportunity to do this to my family. I don't even understand why they are taking this too hard, since I know that they have been texting every single relative that we have about this. It's not even like these relatives talking to them and they're just bringing it up. They're literally going out of their way to text them and tell them about me. It's just ridiculous. The way they're acting, and I think it's a plea for attention, but I'm not going to give it to them. They have been blocked, and no matter what they do, I'm not unblocking them and speaking to them about this. Some of the relatives who have bothered to reach out to me and sent me the screenshots, I've responded to them and explained the entire situation. It's not like they did not know, because for the past 5 years, my parents and I run into each other at family events and don't speak to each other. So most people were aware of our strained relationship, but this is just taking things way too far, trying to directly involve them and make me look like the bad guy. Anyway, after I clarified things with some of my relatives, most of them told me that I did not need to worry about my parents. They were not going to turn against me since they were aware of whatever had happened in the past, and they know that my parents are just overreacting right now. So that's what I'm feeling good about right now. And honestly, my wife is pregnant, so I don't think I have time to worry about these things at the moment. I had been thinking about making the announcement in a couple of weeks, but I think I'm going to do it earlier just so my parents can take the hint and stop trying to bother me. I think it's a good idea, although we're not sure if it's going to work or not, since my parents are pretty heartless, and they could even go and try to trouble us in spite of knowing that my wife is pregnant. I wouldn't put it past them, that's for sure. Update 2. Hello. So my wife and I made the pregnancy announcement on social media a couple of days ago. It's been about 10 days since my last conversation with my parents. Most of my family reached out to me to congratulate me, but then I received an email from an unknown sender that said that my child was going to suffer because of what I was doing to my family. I immediately knew that this was my parents. It had to be, because nobody else would even dream of saying something so horrendous. My baby's not even born yet, and they are already wishing ill upon us just because I said no to helping my brother out. It's not even like Craig had directly approached me for help, in which case I would have at least considered things. But it's my parents who want me to give him a job. Anyway, that's beside the point. If I had done some really evil things, I don't think it would have given them the license to say such things. I did not tell my wife about that email because it would just needlessly upset her, and I don't want that to happen. She's in the early stages of her pregnancy, but nevertheless, it's still very disappointing to read things like these. I chose to deal with this on my own. I went over to my parents' house to speak to them in person. I did not want to unblock them, so visiting them was the only way to speak to them. But they refused to even open up the door to let me in, probably because they were aware that what they had done was really wrong. So I just spoke to them from outside their house, and I really lost my temper there. I yelled at them and said that they had no right to say such things, especially after the way they had behaved with me my entire childhood, and the way that they had been treating me for the past 5 years like I was not even part of the family. Just because I was moderately successful now, they wanted a piece of it and wanted to share my success with my brother as well, even though they had never forced Craig to do such things when I was struggling. And to be honest, they had not even been there for me when I was struggling, so they did not deserve to even speak to me at this point. I told them that whatever they were trying to do was not working because it was just alienating me from them even more. I also said that I never wanted to speak to them again, and even if they apologized, I was not going to forgive them in the future, so they could say goodbye to any help from me when they retired. And they will never get to see their grandchild either. After saying that, I left and came back home, and I feel really relieved now, to be honest. I had been holding these things back for quite some time, ever since they started bothering me, but now it was high time that I gave them a befitting response. I have not told my wife about this interaction yet because I don't want to upset her, and I don't think that I will until the pregnancy is done with. Update 3. Hi, so after I spoke to my parents last week in person, they decided to lay low for a while and not do anything. I also hosted a pregnancy announcement party at my house for some family members and close friends. And I had expected them to do something on that day, but they did not bother. So I thought that maybe they had finally moved on from this whole episode. I was trying to do the same thing, but then this morning I received a call from Craig while I was at work. That was really strange because he totally stopped speaking to us 5 years back, and I had no idea what he wanted to speak to me about. And for a second, I thought he might try to talk to me along the same lines as my parents and demand that I give him a job. And I would have to go through the entire ordeal again. So I ignored his first call, but then he called me a few more times and even messaged me saying that it was urgent and he needed to speak to me. He told me that I did not need to worry because he was not going to ask anything of me. He said that he just wanted to discuss something that had been bothering him for some time. So I decided to answer the call, and we spoke today. He said that he had been pretty depressed for the past few weeks, so he had not been speaking to anybody and had been ignoring all the messages and emails that he had been receiving, including the ones from his relatives. It was only a couple of days ago that he had finally checked those messages and realized that everybody is talking about how it was unfair for our parents to be demanding that I give him a job in my company, especially when they had never treated me well. Craig was really confused because he had been talking to our parents constantly for the past couple of weeks, but they had not said anything about such things going on in the family. He had spoken to our parents after he read those messages and asked them if they had done something of this sort, and they had outright declined it and said that they did not know what was being referred to in those messages. But he felt like they were lying to him, so he had called me instead to find out the truth, because he had confided in our parents about his job situation on how upset he was. And he had never even once said that he wanted my help, so he could not understand why they had chosen to enlist me and then try to force me to contact him and give him a job when he himself had not asked for it. So after giving it some thought, I decided to tell him the truth because I thought that he deserved to know exactly what our parents had been up to behind his back. I told him the entire story of whatever my parents had told me and said that after they had shared his story with me, they had told me that I needed to give him a job and help my family out because he was not in a good place right now, and they did not want him to suffer. I told him that maybe their initial intention was to genuinely help him and support him to get his life back on track, but eventually it just turned into harassing me, and I was not fine with that. I told Craig that I was really sorry about his job because I knew that it meant everything to him, and he had put in a lot of work at the company in his position, and it could not have been easy to be laid off like that. But honestly, he also knew that we never got along and would not work well together, which is why I had declined my parents' request. And Craig seemed to understand. He told me that he was not interested in working with me. He did not mean it offensively, but he was just not in the right state right now to be working with anybody, and he was just taking a break on purpose. My parents had made it out like he had no offers that were worth considering, but he actually did, and he was just holding out on them because he wanted to take a break, and that was his personal choice. It was not that he was not upset, but his decision to not work for a while was not influenced by that. He seemed pretty frustrated, so he vented to me for a bit, and I let him because even though we were not on the best of terms anymore, I thought that he could do it. Anyway, after having a full conversation about this, he told me that he was very upset about what our parents had done regarding him because it made him seem desperate, and it gave people the wrong idea about him, like he was trying to convince my parents to force me to get him a job, and it was just really confusing because he had not done anything of the sort. So he told me that he was going to speak to our parents about this, and he apologized to me for all that I had gone through. I thought it was really mature of him, and I really felt like he had grown up a lot in the past 5 years, especially after he got laid off from his job. I guess he got the idea that nothing was permanent, and so he should not be so proud and arrogant. Maybe that was a lesson in disguise. But anyway, we were not exactly able to patch things up, but at least we had a good talk, and I think that's enough for me. So a couple of days ago, Greg and I spoke to each other on the phone, and after our discussion, he said that he was going to speak to our parents and confront them about what they had done. So he did that, and it did not go too well because my parents got all defensive and said that they were just trying to help him out because they did not think that his position to take some time for himself was a good one, and he needed to get back into looking for a better job immediately. They ended up in a huge fight about it because Craig accused them of trying to control his life right from the beginning and never letting him make any decisions on his own, even when he was grown up. My parents obviously did not like that and started counting all the things that they had done for him, which were just normal things that parents usually do for their kids. And I don't know why they always feel like it's right to brag about it as if they did us a favor. It was not a favor. You had to do it. Anyway, they got into a really bad fight, and now Craig is no longer speaking to them. And guess who they are blaming for all of that? Yep, you got it. They are blaming me for it all once again, and I just don't understand how I can become the scapegoat for literally every situation that they are in. This time, there were no personal confrontations, and they just decided to go ahead and make a Facebook post about it. And lucky for me, though, all our relatives came to my rescue immediately and called my parents out on their BS. They reminded them that they had been terrible parents, not just to me, but also to Craig. In a way, because they kept trying to control him and put him under pressure, especially when he was going through such a difficult time. And they should have been there for him morally and emotionally support him, but instead they were trying to put him down even more and make him seem like the bad guy. So after they received a lot of comments from our relatives, they decided to delete that post and block everybody from my family. To sum it up, pretty much everyone has ostracized them, and I'm really happy about it. Craig and I, well, he has apologized to me for treating me badly in the past, and we are going to try and build our relationship in the future. But right now, the most important thing in my life is my wife, and I'm really excited to be a father. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationship.